Uh, okay, so is my screen visible?
It is, Daniel. Thank you.
Okay, okay, thanks. I believe you're seeing the EC2 presentation, right? Okay, right. So, hello everyone. Happy to have you here on our third session on the AWS Bootcamp. I believe for some of you, they have been here for quite some time, and it's a really pleasure to have you back again. For those of you who are joining for the first time, it's a pleasure. Also, feel free to join us. This is something which happens every Saturday, and it's a bootcamp which is going to last for 3 months, I believe, if not 1 month. But yeah, anyway, it's a great opportunity to learn. So without further ado, let's get started. So today we'll be looking about Amazon EC2. A bit of background about me. So as Lennon mentioned, so my name's Daniel. I'm a 2 times certified AWS cloud enthusiast. So currently serving as part of the lead team for our AWS user group Kigali. So apart from that one, I work as a site reliability engineer at Irembo. Maybe for those of you who are in Rwanda, I believe you're familiar with Irembo in one way or another. Yeah, so one other thing to talk about me, so I'm passionate about anything tech related. And in my free time, I like to exercise. If I get some time, maybe in the weekend, watch a movie or read something not work related. There's an emphasis on this. And yeah, so for those of you at the end of the session, I will share my slides with you, and you can see my LinkedIn profile there, and I will be happy to have you joining my connections, basically. Yeah. So without further ado, let's get started. So first of all, what is EC2, right? So what is this thing, which is like the core services? Anybody who knows about AWS basically knows this. So what is it? So according to AWS, EC2 is one of their service which provides on-demand and scalable compute resources, right? So the main thing that EC2 like takes care of is to reduce hardware cost. And basically, let's use scale your applications quickly. So for those of you who have maybe dealt with on-premise infrastructure, for example, if you want to scale, let's say your business have some new customers. Let's say it's an online store. So basically, let's say in the festive seasons, you get to have a lot of people coming in, right? So in the traditional way, if you want to scale, you basically need to go and buy new servers, go in the hassle of procuring those servers and everything, installing them, which is something which can take a lot of time. And for the time being, let's say the festive seasons have ended, you will basically have those servers sitting there idle. So the main thing with EC2 is that it helps you to reduce your hardware cost. Since you basically go to Amazon and you can get started with, let's say, you can basically scale your applications on those EC2 when you have like a huge workload. Then if you no longer need it, you can basically scale them down. So that's the main thing about EC2 and one of the reasons why it's so famous per se. So another thing is that you can launch and manage your virtual servers, configure security, networking, and manage storage on those EC2 servers. You can also scale up, as I was saying, you can basically scale up to handle the spike in your traffic or compute heavy tasks, or scale down when your usage decreases, right? So that's basically the main thing to talk about EC2. And yeah, so let's see together what are some of the main components of EC2, right? So so basically, we have different components working together to provide that EC2, that powerful or that compute resources that we are looking of. We basically have a lot of different components working together to provide that capability. So some of them we can talk about Amazon machine images, which are pre-configured templates that define the operating system, application, and settings for your EC2 instances. So these are basically the operating system of your EC2 instance. The other key component is instance types. So when you're defining your EC2 instance, you need to choose which EC2 instance type you need to go with. So these ones depend on the compute, on the amount of compute, the amount of memory and storage resources that you will need for your EC2 instance. That basically you will need for your workload per se. So the other key component is in regards to storage. So EC2 provides a wide range of storage options. So here we can talk about Amazon EBS, which is one of the famous storage option for Amazon EC2. We also have Amazon S3. This is another service of its own, but you can basically use it to store your data which are coming from your EC2 instance. We also have Amazon EFS and many more. These are just the main ones. So the fourth component of our EC2 instance is networking. So EC2 instances can be connected to each other and to the internet using a variety of networking options. So in networking, that's where the VPC part is, which is not something for EC2 only, but it also have EC2 as one of the services or one of the resources that it can access to. Maybe we get to see this as we progress into other sessions, but that's what can be said about the networking part of the EC2 instances. The fifth component is about security. So one thing that AWS really takes into consideration is the security aspect of its resources. So they are really serious about security. So one of the main components of any EC2 instances is the security aspect of it. So EC2 provides a variety of security features, including encryption, access control, and intrusion detection. So this is where you will even see some components like key value pairs and some other things or some other things which AWS provides to basically protect your EC2 servers from anything security related. Yeah, so let's see each component one by one and get to know more as we progress. So the first component, as we said, is Amazon Machine Images, which is just in simple word, the operating system of your EC2 instance. So Amazon Machine Image is a template that contains the software configuration, for example, an operating system, an application server, and the application. So one good thing about Amazon Machine Image is that you can basically include both the operating system, the application servers, and the application which you need to learn as part of one thing and launch them at the beginning of your, when launching your EC2 servers. Maybe for those of you who are familiar with containerization, you see when you have a Docker container, you basically can include everything you need for your application to run. So this is one as so the same thing also applies for Amazon Machine Image. You don't need to decide on the operating system only. You can basically combine everything that you need for your servers to learn at the beginning when you're launching it. Let's say it's a web server, you can basically have, let's say, Apache web server installed as have that web server installed at the beginning when launching your EC2 instance. So all this can be defined through your Amazon, through your Amazon Machine Image. So some of the key things to know about AMI. First of all, you can select an AMI based on the region, architect, launch permissions, and load device storage. Second thing, you can launch multiple instances of an IAM image. So as you can see on the image on the left, you can basically use one AMI to launch different instances. You only have one AMI, but you can configure different instances using that one only AMI. This is also good when as we were talking about the scaling up and scaling down, you basically have a predefined Amazon Machine Image, which can be used when, let's say, scaling up or scaling down your application. The other thing is that you can create custom AMIs, which enables you to quickly and easily start your new instances that have everything you need. This is in regard to what I was saying previously. The fourth thing, you can deregister an AMI to reduce hardware costs. And deregistered AMIs can be used to launch new instances, but existing instances are unaffected. So one thing to know also is that with AMI, Amazon Machine Image, you're basically charged for the number of them, for the number of AMIs that you have. So, and yeah, so the next part is the EC2 instance types. When launching your EC2, the second part that you get to decide is your EC2 instance type. So currently we have different EC2 instance types. As said before, these ones depend on different things. So they depend on the compute, the memory, and some other things that can be included to have your EC2 instance basically to have your EC2 instance kind of unique in some way. So some of the instance types that we have, first of all, we have general purpose, which is like the main instance type that you use. This one balances both the compute, memory, and networking resources. Just a general purpose instance. The second instance type that we have is compute optimized. So compute optimized instances are great for compute intensive applications that need high performance processors. So things like batch processing, media transcoding, and other compute heavy workloads. So the first one is general purpose. The second one, you can see that it's only compute optimized. So all the same also goes for the other instance types as we progress. So as you can see, the third one is about memory, right? So this one is optimized for the memory aspect of the instance. So this one is designed for fast performance on memory intensive workloads like open source databases, in-memory caches, and real-time big data analytics, right? Okay, so there we have other instance types as well. Some others that we can talk about are accelerated computing, right? So this one uses hardware accelerators to perform compute-intensive tasks more efficiently than CPUs, right? The fifth one is storage optimized. So storage optimized instances are designed for high performance storage workloads, such as large scale databases and media streaming. So they deliver low latency random IOPS to the application. So the in-memory, so the input and output aspect of the instance is the one which is optimized here. So these ones are good for things which needs a lot of reading and writing on the, let's say on the DB or any other thing per se. So lastly, we have HPC optimized. So HPC optimized instances are purposely built for high performance computing workloads. They are ideal for applications that benefits from high performance processors, let's say large simulators and deep learning. So this is also another instance type that Amazon provides. So after the Amazon machine image and the instance types, what is the next component? So the next component is, maybe a bit to talk about some of the instance types that we have. So when choosing your EC2 instance types, there's this like, we can say that it's a way Amazon uses to basically encode different EC2 instances types. So the first letter stands for the EC2, for the instance family. That's to say, for example, here it's a C, that's a compute optimized. If it's an M, it's a memory optimized. If it's a C, maybe any other one. So it's basically, this one basically shows the instance family. The second number or the second symbol is for the instance generation. These are the generations of the instances that have been there basically. So the third one is the instance size. So different instances have different sizes. So for example, I believe Amazon starts from the lower level to the upper level. Let's say small, medium, I don't know, maybe I'm not familiar, small, medium, large, something like that. So basically this is the encoding that Amazon uses when defining different instance types. So the other one, the third component of Amazon EC2 is the storage, right? So on the storage aspect of it, we are going to see Amazon Elastic Block Store. So this is just like an introduction to EBS per se, because I believe there will be some other sessions where they will present more. They will go into in depth on this topic per se. So EBS is a persistent block storage service that provides high performance, reliable, and scalable storage for EC2 instances. So EBS volumes can be attached to and detached from an EC2 instance, and they persist even if the instance is stopped or terminated. right? So some of the things you need to know about EBS. So first of all, you can use Amazon EBS to store EC2 data that needs to be persisted if an instance is stopped or terminated. So we have different storage for EC2 instances. Maybe that we get to talk about these ones in the other, as I mentioned in other sessions, but we have different storage for Amazon EC2 instances. So the good thing with EBS storage is that they persist. The data that you store there persists even if the instance is stopped or terminated. So that's one good thing and the main thing to know about EBS. So the other one is that you can use EBS to improve performance and increase availability by storing data on high performance volumes and replicating across multiple volumes. So the good thing with EBS as well is that you can basically replicate it in different, you can take snapshots and replicate those snapshots in different regions. Let's say if one region was to go down, or have some issues, so your EBS storage can, or your EBS data, or the data stored on your EBS volume can basically persist in another region as long as you have backed it up there. So the third thing is that Amazon EBS provides, so the third thing is the volume types that Amazon EBS provides. So we have general purpose. We have, so general purpose is basically good for general purpose things per se, like anything that is not unique in its workload per se, on its storage. The data, you basically don't need something fancy, or basically just general purpose. So the second one is provisioned IOPS. So this one is good for things which need a lot of reading and writing on the storage volume. So this is basically provisioned for this one. So reading and writing tasks on the volume, you use provisioned IOPS. The third one is throughput optimized HDD, and the fourth one is called HDD. So for throughput optimized, they are basically HDD storage, which are optimized for the throughput aspect of it. So the difference between it and the cold one is that for the throughput optimized, they have basically optimized the throughput aspect of that storage volume. For cold HDD, it's just the normal HDD that we have. Maybe even for some of you who have HDD on their computers, just the normal HDD, right? So basically, the main types of EBS volumes that we have, they are STD and HDD. So in each category, we have one which is kind of optimized for a specific kind of workload or a specific kind of storage, right? The fourth thing is that you can create point-in-time snapshots of your EBS volumes, which are persisted on Amazon S3. And these same snapshots can be used to create as many volumes as you need. So this is in regards to what I was saying above before. So with your EBS volumes, you can basically take snapshots and store them in different regions for high availability. And if anything was to go wrong in one region, maybe let's say you lose your data, you basically have a backup of your data in some other regions as well, right? Yeah. So one other thing to say about EBS is that with EBS, you can create, the other thing to say is how to create an EBS volume. So when you're creating an EBS volume, you have to specify the size of the volume and the performance level, which determines how quickly data can be read and written to your volume. And from there, then you need to attach it to your EC2 instance because it's not part of the EC2 instance store. You basically need to attach it, right? So what are EBS security best practices? First of all, encrypt your EBS volumes using, let's say, Amazon Key Management Service, KMS, right? But this doesn't mean that you only need to use AWS KMS. I believe maybe you can even use some other encryption options. Maybe I will need to double check on this, but I believe you can also use some other encryption as well. Second thing, use a firewall to control access to your EBS volumes, right? Third thing, monitor your EBS volumes for suspicious activities. Since this one is the one storing your data, you really need to be serious about the security aspect of it, right? And lastly, the pricing on EBS volumes. So you only pay for the EBS storage that you use. And the price of your EBS storage depends on the size and the volume, the size of the volume and the performance level, as you have seen when you're creating your EBS volume. Okay. So the other main component of Amazon EC2 are EC2 security groups. So this is on the security aspect of the EC2 instance. So security groups are basically virtual firewall for your EC2 instances, which controls the incoming and outgoing traffic into your instance. So the inbound rules control the incoming traffic to your instance, and the outbound rules control the outgoing traffic from your instance. Maybe as we progress, we'll get to see what inbound and outbound rules are. But for now, just know that they control the traffic from and in your instance. So some of the key points to know about AWS security groups. First of all, when you launch an instance, you can specify one or more security groups. If not, Amazon EC2 uses the default security group for your VPC. So it basically assigns you a certain security group, because as long as you create an EC2 instance, it needs to have like a security groups attached on it. This is why I was saying that AWS is really, really serious about the security aspect of their system. So anything regarding security, I would say they are your go-to guys, because if you were to do the same thing on premise, I believe you would have to maybe invest a lot or spend a lot of money doing so. Okay, so the second thing, you can add rules to each security group that allow traffic to or from its associated instances. You can also modify the rules for the security group at any time, right? So third thing, when Amazon EC2 decides whether to allow traffic to reach your instance, it evaluates all the rules from all the security groups that are associated with your instance. So it doesn't only care about one security rule. It basically evaluates every rule that is associated to your EC2 instance, and from there it decides if it will send the traffic in or if it's going to discard that one. Fourth thing is that changing an EC2 instance security group changes the associated network interfaces. So as you have seen, EC2 groups act as your virtual firewalls, for your EC2 instance. So when you change your security group, you basically are updating your AWS basically updates your network interfaces to reflect those changes that you have done. One other thing to talk about security groups is the security group rules. So some of the key points about AWS security group rules. First of all, let's see the inbound rules. So inbound rules control incoming traffic to your AWS resources. For example, let's say you want to allow traffic coming, you want to allow SSH traffic. You can basically define that one to, let's say have it. So if you want to allow, let's say SSH traffic, you can basically define that one in your EC2 instant rules by allowing any SSH traffic coming on port 22 to basically pass. If you don't want to allow, then you don't need to define that one. So the same also goes for the other ports as well, and for different things as well. So you can allow traffic on port 80, HTTP traffic on port 80, and everything. All those are defined in your inbound rules. So for the outbound rules control outgoing traffic from your AWS resources. So by default, all outbound traffic is allowed, but you can restrict it, right? So the outbound traffic is the traffic which is coming from your EC2 instances, basically going out. So your inbound traffic is the one which is coming into your EC2 instances. So you can see that AWS is really serious on allowing and on deciding which traffic needs to come into your EC2 instance. But for the ones which are going out, since they are coming from your EC2 instances, that one is not very, they are not very restrictive on that one, right? So another thing about AWS security rules is that security group rules can be applied to multiple AWS resources. For example, you can use security groups to control access to your EC2 instance, RDS instances, and load balancers. I believe you will get to see other services that AWS provides. So this RDS instances is just a database instance service that AWS provides. The load balancer, we'll get to see about that one as we progress into this session. So the fourth thing is the statefulness of your AWS security group rules. So security group rules are stateful, which means that if you allow incoming traffic on a specific port, the outbound response traffic for that connection is automatically allowed. So they keep the state of what rules you defined in your when defining your security group rules. The other thing, in terms of priority, rules are evaluated in priority order. So with the lower rule, numbers having higher precedence. If multiple rules match a specific traffic flow, the rule with the lowest number will be applied. So the other thing is that by default, all inbound traffic is denied. By default, all traffic coming into your EC2 instance is denied. And by default, all outbound traffic is allowed. Anything coming into your EC2 instance is allowed. So when you create a new security group, it starts with these default rules. As we saw, when you don't define your security group rule, Amazon basically assigns you the default security group rule. So these are the things that you get when Amazon gives you the default security group rule. The other thing is that security group rule is in regards to the security group changes. So you can modify the rules of a security group at any time, and the changes take effect immediately. Lastly, each security group is identified by a unique ID, which you can use to associate it with AWS resources. That's to say EC2 instances and other different resources that Amazon provides, as we have seen, let's say RDS instances and others as well. So I don't know if Lenny, I don't know if there is any question or if I can just proceed. So if there is any question, feel free to ask as we proceed. Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
I understood well the EC2 instance, the EC2. All about the EBS and Amazon image. All I understood it, but what I didn't capture well is the EC2 instance. What is the EC2 instance? In like you explained well the images, the Amazon images where it's like
okay. So an EC2 instance is basically an EC2. We just call them instances since they are servers. Or so an EC2 instance is just just that machine, the machine that we are talking about here. They are called EC2 instances. So if I say EC2 instance, you can just take it as an EC2. That server that we have been talking about, we call them EC2 instances. All right. I don't know if I answered your question itself. Maybe
yeah, I understand. Thank you.
So they call them different names. You can just call them an EC2 server, let's say, or just call them an EC2 instances. So specifically for AWS, they call them EC2 instances, but they are these servers that we are talking about here, right? Okay. Okay. Thanks, Els. So let's proceed. The other component that we see, as I keep emphasizing, Amazon is really serious about the security aspect of their systems. So the other component is EC2 key pairs. So EC2 key pairs is a pair of public and private keys that are used solely to authenticate your EC2 instance. So the public key stored in Amazon servers and the private key stored on your computer. And one thing to know is that when you don't have your private key, you can't authenticate, when you can't access your EC2 instances. Maybe we'll get to talk about that one as we proceed. So some of the key points to know about EC2 key pairs. First of all, Amazon EC2 key pairs is required to securely connect your EC2 instance. Without a key pair, so the reason why the key pair is important is that without the key pair, anyone with your instance's public address can access your data, which is something not good, because if he can access your instance, if he can access your instance's public IP, he can access your data, then that's not a good thing for that data that you need to keep. Maybe let's say it's a database, so you don't need to have this one exposed. So this is the good thing that EC2 key pairs bring. So they authenticate each user who needs to get to your EC2 instance. The second thing, to use an Amazon EC2 key pair, you need to download the private key. As I said, if you don't have your private key and you have already defined your EC2 key pairs, let's say if your private key gets lost, you can't SSH into your EC2 instance. So the way to SSH into your private or to access your EC2 instance is through the private key. And you need this one to basically connect to your EC2 instance. Thirdly, to secure your Amazon EC2 key pairs, store your private key in a secure location. As we saw, if someone have your private key, anyone with that EC2 instance's private key can access it. So you need to secure your private keys in some place safe where not everyone can reach them, and be intentional on locating your key pairs regularly and use strong passwords for your key pair. That's it for the key pairs. So the other main component of Amazon EC2 are EC2 auto-scaling. So as we said, one of the good things about Amazon is that it protects you from hardware costs. So as we saw, if you have, let's say, a surge in your traffic, in the normal sense or in the normal IT world, you just need to get some other servers to handle that surge in traffic. But the good thing with Amazon is that they provide you with like a band of servers that you can use when your workloads grows. So this is where auto-scaling come into place, if I may say so. Auto-scaling, Amazon auto-scaling helps you to maintain application availability and lets you automatically add or remove it to instances using scaling policies that you define, right? So you can define, for example, an auto-scaling group. So you can define an auto-scaling group, let's say with a minimum of 1 instance and the maximum of 4 instances. You also need to define the desired capacity. So this is the number of instances that at one time, if I may say, needs to be running just to have like that capacity that you believe can handle, let's say, traffic, or reach the idea capacity for your auto-scaling group. So when let's say when there is a surge in traffic, Amazon takes into consideration the maximum size that you have defined for your auto-scaling group and tries to, let's say, if there is a surge, Amazon will increase the number of resources depending on the maximum size that you have defined. If there is low traffic, then it can shrink that same amount of resources and, let's say, have only 1 instance running just to accommodate that declining in the traffic. So this is a good thing because you don't need to, let's say there's a surge in traffic, you necessarily don't need to go on AWS and define, hey, start a new server because let's say you have a surge in traffic, as I was saying. So if there's a surge in traffic, you don't need to go on AWS and define, hey, start a new server, 2 servers and everything. So with auto-scaling group, you basically have something defined on how to handle the change in your traffic. So this is the good thing about auto-scaling group. Some of the things to know about EC2 auto-scaling. So your EC2 instances are organized into things called auto-scaling groups. So these are things which and these auto-scaling groups are treated as a logical unity for the purpose of scaling and management. So as we saw in this previous slide, so you define something which keeps count of, let's say, the minimum number of instances that you can allow and the maximum number of instances that you think can handle your traffic. So you, with this one defined, they are considered or they are treated as one logical unity. And when you create a group, you can specify its maximum, minimum, and the desired number of EC2 instances. The second thing is launch template. So launch templates are blueprint for creating EC2 instances. They specify the instance type, AM, Amazon machine image, and other configuration options. So these are the things that your auto scaling group will look for when starting those. Let's say when starting those servers that you have mentioned, you have, let's say currently you have one instance running and the traffic grows. So auto scaling groups relies on launch template to know how to start those servers. So these launch templates are the ones which specifies the Amazon machine image to use and the different configurations to rely on when launching your EC2 instance. When launching those EC2 instances with auto scaling groups. So the third thing is about scaling policy. So scaling policies defines how your auto scaling group will scale. For example, you can create a scaling policy that scales the group up when the CPU utilization reaches a certain threshold. Your memory utilization reaches a certain threshold. So the scaling policies show how you need, what your EC2. So we have launch templates which specifies what things to rely on to when launching. Sorry, launch templates, they basically specify your instance types, your IAM, and other things. But the scaling policy, they define what to rely into when launching those instances, right? So let's say your CPU utilization goes, let's say your EC2 instance is running at 90% CPU utilization. You're like, hey, maybe since this one is growing, so in your scaling policy, you can define, hey, if my EC2 instance reaches the 90% threshold, please start a new instance. So when starting that new instance, your auto scaling group is going to rely on your launch template. Hey, what are some of the things I need to know when starting that EC2 instances? Okay, here's the IAM image to use. Okay, here's the configuration things to rely into. So basically, that's how everything works in regards to the auto scaling of your EC2 instances. Okay, so EC2 instances offers a number of benefits. One of them is better fault tolerance, as you can detect when an instance is unhealthy, and as EC2 instance groups can detect when an instance is unhealthy and terminate it, then launch a new instance or replace it. So this ensures that your application is always available. The other benefit of auto-scaling group is better availability. So with auto-scaling group, you can automatically scale your application up or down. The third benefit of auto-scaling group is that or EC2 auto-scaling per se is that they are good for better cost management. So with auto-scaling group, you can help. So auto-scaling group can help you save money by scaling your application up or down as needed. So the pricing of your EC2 auto-scaling. So there's no additional fees for using Amazon auto-scaling. So you only pay for the AWS resources that you use, right? So if you were using 2 instances, but you have defined your maximum capacity to be 4 instances, and there's that surge in traffic, as we were saying. So you only pay for that added number of instances to reach that maximum amount. So you don't pay for using the service, but rather those resources that it starts. So the other component of EC2 to look into in this session is elastic load balancing. So elastic load balancing automatically distributes your incoming traffic across multiple targets, such as EC2 instances, containers, and everything. It also monitors the health of its registered targets and allows traffic only to the healthy targets. So we have seen that with auto-scaling group, it can detect when an instance is unhealthy and terminate it, right? So during this process, you may ask, hey, if it's terminating it, let's say, which is the component which is going to take into consideration that this instance which was on the list of instances to rely into, or this server, just like forgot the name, just like my colleague who just asked the question. So if this server which was healthy is being terminated, maybe which is unhealthy is being terminated, where do we route that traffic which was going there? So so elastic load balancing is the one which is responsible for this one, right? So it have different EC2 instances as a pool, then it routes traffic on each one according to how it's performing, right? So this is the good part about elastic load balancers. Some of the things you need to know about ELB, as they say. First of all, what are the types that we have? So we currently have a lot of different types, but for the sake of this session, I only brought these three. These main ones, these are the main ones for. So the first one is application load balancer. So application load balancer distributes that traffic that we are talking about, but here they are HTTP traffic. So this one load balances the HTTP traffic for the sake of improving your performance and everything for, let's say, your web applications and API. So this one is only in regards to the application side of your workload. So the other one is network load balancer. So the network load balancer, for it distributes TCP traffic, right? So this is done for applications such as gaming, file sharing, and streaming. Okay, so the third one is gateway load balancer. So the gateway load balancer distributes traffic across multiple AWS regions and availability zones, and it's a great choice for applications that needs to be highly available and scalable. Benefits of using ELB: first of all, it improves performance. Secondly, it improves availability, and thirdly, it improves scalability. Okay. So now that you have completed the EC2 instance components, let's go into EC2 purchasing options. As we know, this is a service, so you need to pay. So there's price involved in using it. Since you don't want to go and buy your own infrastructure and you're coming to AWS to use the infrastructure, how is the pricing on AWS? How does it compare even to that approach that you are going to use, that you're discarding basically for the cloud? So this is what we are going to see in this section. So we have different EC2 instance purchasing options. So we have some of their categories. First of all, we have on-demand instance. We have saving plans. We have reserved instances. So we also have spot instances. We have dedicated hosts. We have dedicated instances, and we have capacity reservations. So one thing to know about your EC2 purchasing option is that it takes into consideration the EC2 instances. And we'll get to see more on what each instance purchase options really is about. But as I mentioned here, for this, these are a lot of purchasing options. For the sake of time and this session, so we just see the main ones, but we'll look into deeper on how the on how pricing is on those ones, and the same also applies for the other ones as well. If you know like the core basic of how to define this pricing, these purchasing options, then the same basically goes on the other ones as well. Okay. So the first purchasing options that we have are on-demand instances. So with on-demand instances, you can pay for compute capacity by second with no long-term commitments. So this one is good. So you will have full control over the instance's life cycle. You get to decide when to launch, stop, hibernate, and start, reboot, or terminate your instance. Okay, so one thing to say about on-demand EC2 instances is that your compute capacity. So here they are saying you pay for your compute capacity by the second. So this is just the time frame. It's not as if, so I just wanted to highlight on this one. So it's by second, like timeline, you only, so when they are billing you, they take into consideration the by second. They take into consideration the seconds or the time that you have used that EC2 instance. So that's where the on-demand, that's what needs to be said about your on-demand instances. They take into consideration the time that you use it. So the second here, the second mentioned here is just the time that they use when billing you. So some of the key points about on-demand instances, there's no long-term commitment. Sorry, there's no long-term commitment required when you purchase your on-demand instances. You only pay for the seconds that your on-demand instances are in a running state with a 60-second minimum. So 1 minute is the minimum that you get billed on. So even if you run it for, let's say, 30 seconds, they will bill you for 1 minute. So that's the minimum that they allow. Some of the key benefits of using on-demand instances, first of all, is the flexibility of it. You can launch and terminate your instance as you need. The second thing is that it's cost effective, since you can only pay for the hours that you use or the time that you use. The third thing is about performance. So with on-demand instances, with on-demand instances, you are confident that your EC2 instance will perform as expected. So since this one, so we thought as we progress, we'll see some other instance types where, so here on the performance benefit of on-demand instance is that your EC2 instance is not terminated. So when we progress with the other purchasing options, you will see that there are some which doesn't have the performance on it, because you basically your EC2 instance can basically be taken from you when maybe, let's say, someone else is bringing in more money than it. We just get to see that one as we progress. So that's what we can say about. Okay, one other thing to talk about on-demand instances is that they are good choice. They are great choices if you need if you have the flexibility, if you need the flexibility to launch and terminate instances as you need, or if you only need your instance for a short period of time, right? So the other thing is that some of the factors which can help to choose some of the factors which can help to choose if you really need to go for on-demand EC2 instance type as a purchasing option. So first of all, the type of workload that you will be learning on your instance. So if you are learning something which we learn for a short period, you can basically go with on-demand instance. Since it's something which is going to last for a short period, but let's say you need it to learn continuously. You don't need AWS to terminate it instantly, because we'll see some other purchasing options where AWS can just terminate your instance or give it to someone else without, maybe they can tell you, but in that purchasing option, you get there's that possibility of AWS taking away your server. So on-demand EC2 instances are good for workloads which will, so it's good for workloads which are going to run for a short period of time. The other factor to take into consideration when choosing for an on-demand instance is the amount of compute capacity that you need. So with on-demand EC2 instances, you need it for compute cap. I would say it's not a wonderful idea for huge compute workloads, since you're built for the instance that you use and the amount of time that you use it. There are some other options that you can rely on, but you need to take into consideration the amount of compute capacity that you need when choosing your on-demand EC2 instance. So this same factor also applies for the other instance purchasing options we will see as we progress. So it's not only for on-demand EC2 instances. The third factor is the region and availability zone in which you want to launch your EC2 instance. Because with AWS, different regions so different regions are not charged the same amount. So they can charge you for, let's say, an EC2 server in this region is charged more than this in this other region. So you also need to take into consideration the region in which you're going to launch your EC2 instance. So the other thing is the price of on-demand instances. So it varies depending on the instance type, region, and the availability zone, as we saw. So the second purchasing options are the spot instances. So spot instances are unused EC2 instances that are available at a discounted price. So as I was saying, let's say you have a lot of compute workload which only needs a lot of compute power, but which can basically be terminated at any time. So spot instances are your go-to instances as the purchasing option. So they are available, they are unused EC2 instances that are available at a discounted price. They're also a great way to save money, and especially if you're willing to be flexible about when your instance runs. So this is to say that with spot instances, as I said, contrary to on-demand instances, with spot instances, AWS can take over your EC2 instance while you're like using it. So this is one unique aspect of spot instances. Though they are cost effective and they are cheap per se, so with spot instance, though they are cheap and cost effective, though they are cheap, right? They have this thing where AWS can basically take it over as your compute workload is still running. Some of the key points to talk about spot instances. First of all, they are auctioned off to the highest bidder. So the one with the highest price is the one who is going to take that spot instance. If you bid for a low price, you're not going to get it, or you will get it after some time. Second thing, spot instances are good choices for application that needs a lot of compute capacity for short periods of time. And you're willing to be flexible about when your instance runs. So as I said, with short instances, AWS can basically take it over while your workload is still running per se. So they will tell you that they are taking it over, but that aspect is there. Third thing, to use spot instances, you need to create a spot instance request. So you create a request, you put in your bidding amount, you put in the maximum price that you're willing to pay, and then AWS will basically compare those bidding, and they will be like, hey, this one is the one with the highest amount. Let's give him these instances. Okay, so one other thing to talk about spot instances, as I said, they are not always available. They can be terminated at any time. And this is one thing that you need to take into consideration when choosing your spot instances. Though they are cost effective and cheap, but they can be terminated at any time. And you shouldn't store sensitive data on spot instances because they can basically be taken away at any moment. The benefits of using spot instances, they're very cost effective. So spot instances can save up to 90% on your EC2 costs. Secondly, they are flexible. Solely the flexibility. So spot instances allows you to be flexible about when your instances run. So you can basically get a lot of compute power for a small amount of money, as long as you have the flexibility of maybe having your EC2 terminated or the things that you're running on that EC2 instance terminated without being at any time. So if you have that flexibility, then you can go with EC2 spot instances. Thirdly, the scalability. So spot instances can be scaled up or down quickly to meet your needs. So if there is some EC2 instances laying around which are unused, AWS can take into consideration the bidding that you have and be like, hey, let's assign this instance to that guy. Third purchasing option is reserved instances. So reserved instances that you purchase for 1 year or 3-year term. So reserved instances offer a significant discount over on-demand pricing, and they can save up to 75% of your EC2 cost. Key points to talk about reserved instances. When you purchase a reserved instance, you commit to using a certain amount of compute capacity for a certain period of time. This is the main key point about reserved instances. You need to commit to using that certain amount of compute capacity that you need to commit to a certain amount of compute capacity for a certain period of time. So the main thing to know about reserved instance is commitment. You need to choose them when you're sure that you're going to use those instances for a certain amount of time. So reserved instances are a good choice if your applications, first of all, are predictable. As I said, to commit, you need to know how, you need to predict how you're going to use, you need to predict how many EC2 instances or how many instances you're going to need, since you're committing for 1 or 3-year term. So you need to know in this year that I'm committing to, how many instances am I going to need, right? In this 3-year term, how many instances am I going to need, then commit. Second, reserved instances are long-lived. So if you plan to use the same instance type for an extended period of time, then reserved instances are your go-to instances. Thirdly, reserved instances are committed. So if you're committed to using a certain amount of compute capacity, yeah, go with reserved instances. Okay. So also, to use reserved instances, you need to purchase a reserved instance reservation. So a reserved instance reservation specifies the type of instance you want, the amount of time you want the instance for, and the purchase option you want. So here, in terms of the time, it's only 1 year or 3-year term. So and also the purchase options that you want to go with. So benefits of using reserved instances: first of all, they are cost effective compared to on demand. As I said, spot instances are the ones which are the most cost effective, but they have that unpredictability in it. Reserved instances, they are the second ones which are cost effective, but they need that commitment. You need to commit to that long-term longevity of your EC2 instances. On-demand instances, on the other hand, they are not that cost-effective because they are expensive, kind of, compared to the other ones, right? But they have that you would say unpredictability of spot instances, but also that flexibility of, or that stability of reserved instances. So that's one way to compare all these purchasing options. Flexibility. So reserved instances can be used with on-demand instances. So you can scale your compute capacity up or down as needed. So since you're committing, you can't be so sure of how many instances you're going to need. So with on-demand instances, since you're not that sure, you can basically specify, hey, if the workload grows, then launch some on-demand instances. If the workload comes back down, then go back on your on-demand or go back on your reserved instances. Because for reserved instances, you can't be like, hey, if I've chosen seven instances, then run 6 only. No, you choose those 7. If the workload increase, then you can choose. You can basically scale up to using on-demand instances. So the predictability, as I said, with reserved instances, you have a predictable pricing as long as you don't maybe opt for on-demand instances when your workload grows, because these ones are priced on the side. So they have that predictability in them. Okay, so let's look into the EC2 instance cost optimization. As we said, since you're relying on another provider for your infrastructure needs, you need to be very careful with your costs. So how do you optimize your cost on this? How do you optimize your EC2 instance costs? So first of all, use reserved instances. So reserved instances offer a significant amount of on-demand pricing. So this is good for people who have that predictability in the workloads that they are going to need. So better go with reserved instances if you have that one if you have that predictability in your workload. Second, use spot instances. So for using spot instances, you need to use, so if you have that unpredictability in the, let me say, if you have that flexibility of having your EC2 taken or terminated at any time, better go with spot instances, since they are the most discounted instances of all the classes. The third point is right-sizing your instances. So also use the right instance type for your workload. So you don't need to choose, let's say, a very big instance when actually you're going to need a small workload. You also don't need to choose a big instance or commit for a huge number of instances, since you're like, hey, in December or during some peak traffic time, I need this EC2 instances, then I'm going to commit for these ones. No. So better choose wisely your instances. If you have peak traffic times, you can basically rely on auto-scaling to start to create other new resources as your workload grows. So that's the right-sizing aspect of your instance. Fourthly, optimize your instance configuration. So disable unused features and services. Fifth thing, monitor your usage. So use different options that AWS provides, like CloudWatch, to monitor your usage and identify areas where you can save as much money as you can. Try to save as much as you can. So use different monitors for this. Lastly, use auto-scaling. As I said, don't commit for something that you're going to have laying there idle. So if there's a growth in workloads, please use auto-scaling. And if the workloads diminish, go back to your usual number of instances or your usual compute capacity. The other thing, use spot instances for batch processing. This is a great use of spot instances, since batch processes don't necessarily need to be sustained. So you can basically cut them, then restart them. Because something with spot instance is that when Amazon terminates your instance, at some point they will relaunch it, kind of. So they will give you another instance at some point, but you don't have that flexibility of having it all the time, just compared to on-demand or reserved instances. So use spot instances for batch processing. The other thing is use reserved instances for long-running workloads. Also use on-demand instances for unpredictable workloads, and use different instance types for different workloads. So keep every workload that you have, for every workload that you have, please use the right instance. Rely on all the things that we have talked in the previous slides and choose the best instance for you. Okay. So lastly, let's get started with EC2 instance. So here we are basically going to launch an EC2 instance, connect on it, just simple stuff, install a web server, then try to see if that web server or that thing the web server is available on the internet, just in just like in a normal life, what do we know? What do we use servers for? So we use them to host our applications. So this is one thing that we'll do. We are not going to go into deep. We are not going to go deeper into stuffs. Just install a small web server on it. Yeah, then terminate it. And lastly, review some of EC2's best security, some of EC2 security best practices. So Lene, you can tell me if we're ahead of my time. How many minutes do I still have? Well, I've went past the threshold.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. I guess we can have maybe 10 to 20 minutes for this hands-on process on initiating an EC2 instance, and then we can proceed practice test.
Okay, thanks, Lenny. So this one is not going to take a lot of time. It's just basically we basically going to see some of the things that we have seen, that we have talked about above. How do they, like on AWS, how do they look like? Just basic stuff to get started with it. See, so first of all, let's launch an EC2 instance. So for that one, we need to go to the AWS console. So feel free to tell me which screen you're seeing currently.
We can see the whole window, so we can.
The whole window. So
yeah,
you can see the. Okay, that's better. Okay, so we log into the AWS management console. So to launch an EC2 instance, you can launch it from the AWS console. You can launch it from the AWS CLI, which is the command line interface for AWS, or AWS SDK. So in this session, we are just going to launch it from the dashboard or the console. So for me, you can see that I have it on the list of the recently visited services, but for that one who doesn't have it here, you can basically come here and search for EC2. Okay. Then on this thing, okay. So then you come here and go to instances. Here you have the list of your instances. So currently I don't have any instance running. So to launch a new instance, you come here on the launch instance option, then give your EC2 or your instance a name, meaningful name. So for this one, let's just call it a web server. Maybe let's say our test Apache web server. Yeah. So additional tags, you can just add different tags. Let's say purpose. Let's say test our test the things we learned through our SQL session. So that's it for the name. Then we come and choose our Amazon machine image. As I was telling you, an Amazon machine image is basically your core application needs combined with the OS image that you're going to learn. So for example, for this one, we have different Amazon machine images, but just for the sake of getting this easily, Amazon machine images are just your operating system for your server or your EC2 instance, right? So for us, we'll go with the Amazon Linux one, which is the Amazon machine image AWS created. So it's based on Linux. So we'll choose that one. If you don't find your, let's say your AMI on this quick start, you can even come here if you know the name of what you're looking for. You can just come here and search for it. So for Windows, we have these ones. Sorry, what did I do? My website. Okay. So you can, as I was saying, in regards to the machine image, you can, if you know the name, you can just come and type it. Let's say it's an Nginx server, but they don't have Nginx. Okay. But you can browse different AMIs if you know the names, put it in here. So for the instance type, we have different instance types, as we said. So we have, as I said, the first one stands for the instance family. The other one, the version, the version, and the third one for the size. So this is nano. After nano, we have micro, we have small, medium, large, and everything. We have, for example, for the C, it's compute optimized. We can basically see different types. So for this, we just go with the free tier eligible. So free tier is so when you launch your EC2, when you create your first AWS account, there's so they give you some credits to use for a specific amount of time. So these are all included in the free tier account. So it's called the free tier, and we get like I don't remember well, but there's a certain amount of compute resources or even other resources that you get to have when you were free tier eligible or when you're launching your AWS account for the first time. So we'll go with this one, the T3 micro. So the key pair, as we said, this is the one which we use to access our EC2 instance. So you can create a key pair, just give it a meaningful name. Let's say my EC2 key pair, right? So you choose which encryption to go with. So you can go with RSI or this ED255. So also choose the private key file format to go with. So for PPK, for those ones of you who are familiar with PPK, so with PuTTY, you can just download the PPK version, but for the other ones, especially for Linux, you can go with PM, sorry. Then we create our key pair. By default, when you create a key pair, it's directly downloaded into your machine. So for the networking part, this is where we define the firewall rules. You remember that we said that security groups are the firewall, they act as firewall of your EC2 instance. So this is where they are part of the security component, of your EC2 instance. So for the security group, This is the default one. But for us, since we want to access our EC2 servers on the internet, we are going to allow both HTTP and HTTPS traffic from the internet. So here, anywhere, this means that it's anywhere from the internet. Then we go on the storage, we configure our storage. As we have seen, we can choose different storage. So they are telling us that with Fluty account, you can get more than, so you can get at least 30 gigs of EBS general purpose SSD or magnetic storage. So you can get 30 gigs on the SSD EBS type, or 30 gigs on EBS magnetic storage, which is the HDD. So there are some other additional features. So like requesting for spot instances, host name type, different options per se, which we are not going to go further into in the sake of time. So let's go ahead and launch our EC2 instance. Okay. So you can see that this one has been successfully launched. So let's access it. So to connect to our EC2 instance, we have different ways to do so. So we can connect it to our through the key that we downloaded, the key pair that we downloaded and SSH into it. We can connect it through the AWS CLI. We can connect it through the AWS DK. We can even connect it through the AWS console. In this session, we are just going to connect through the AWS console. Okay. And yeah, we have connected to our EC2 instance, and now we are inside of it. Okay. So since we want to basically install a web server on this one, first thing that we can do is just to update our EC2 instance so it have the recent version. So for the Amazon Linux AMI, they use YAM as their default packet manager, but I'm not sure if you can use some other ones or install some other ones, but I believe they can do. So sorry, this one didn't land. Okay. So as I said, the first thing you need to do is just update your machine to have the recent changes. This is now updated. So let's go ahead and install our web server, as we were saying. So here we are just going to install an Apache web server. So let's go ahead and install it. Okay, our Apache web server is installing. And by the way, so this is the way we interact with our EC2 instance. So you can just come here in the command line window and interact with it, install different things on it. Let's say you just want to install a Docker image, run your application server, run your web server, anything. This is the way to do so. So now that our web server is installed, let's try to. So let's start it so we can access it on the internet. Right. Oh, spelling. So we started. Now that it started, let's enable it. So we basically just enabling it. To be accessible on there, so it can learn on the internet. Okay, now that we have enabled it, if we were to go back on our EC2 and try to connect on it, so this is the public IP address of it. Since on the security group, we have allowed any traffic coming from the internet to basically access our EC2 instance, which is not a good thing for some instances per se, or for some applications. Let's say, for example, if it's a DB server or if it's an application server, this is good for the web server, but for the other servers, it's not a really great idea. But since we have defined this one in our security groups, we should have access on this EC2 instance. And yeah, so you can see that. So this is the message that purchase server displays, but it's just showing us that we can access our EC2 server. Okay. And yeah, so now that we have launched our EC2 servers and connected on it, what is the next thing? So the next thing you need to do, let's say when you're done using your server on your EC2 instance, the one thing that you need to do and take into consideration is to terminate it, right? So please be intentional on terminating your EC2 instances. Because one thing with AWS is that when you don't terminate your EC2 instances, they keep billing you, right? So the last thing that we're going to do now that we have connected and launched our EC2 servers is to terminate it. So to terminate your EC2 servers, you just come into on the instance state, then mark it as terminated. So this is going to take some time, but you can see that it's telling us that our EC2 server is now being shut down. Okay. And yeah, this is it for the EC2 instance. So one last thing to see, as I said, is the security aspect of our EC2 server. So we want to use this thing for powerful powerful workloads or powerful applications. So we want this, let's say we want to use our EC2 as our application server or as our DB server. What are some of the best security practices that we can rely to use this one efficiently and maybe get it done with the on-premise infrastructure? So this is also crucial. So yeah, what are some of the best security best practices for our EC2 instance? First of all, use strong passwords and enable two-factor authentication. So this is in regards to your AWS account. So better to use a strong password and use multi-factor authentication, because if someone gets access on your AWS console or your AWS account, it basically can do everything that you can do as the root user. Secondly, use security groups to control traffic to your instance. As I said, with security groups, you basically define who is allowed and what is allowed to access your server or what needs to enter or go out of your server. So this is also one of the best aspects of the security on AWS. So use security groups to control anything traffic related to your instance. Thirdly, use IAM laws to delegate permissions. As we have seen in the last session with Cynthia, we have seen how IAM really is powerful. So please use IAM laws to delegate permissions to not EC2 instances only, but all your resources, all your AWS resources. But in this case, the EC2 instance, please use IAM laws to delegate permissions. Fourth thing, keep your software up to date. So this is like how do you say it? This is a responsibility of the user. So for your EC2 instance, AWS doesn't update, is not supposed to update your software and everything. You, as the root user, you're the one who's supposed to update your software. As you have seen, when we were installing that Apache server, we had to first of all install like the recent updates from the recent updates using YAM. So as the user, you're the one responsible for doing this. AWS is not going to do so. And this is the best, this is a good thing, especially for securities, since you can you can install the recent security patches and updates so your server stays up to date with what is really going on and have the sense of some of the best security, some of the security best practices which are on trend. So please keep your software up to date. That's your responsibility. Fifth thing, monitor your instance for signs of unauthorized access or malicious activity. So this one, AWS have different tools that you can use on this one. You can use different monitoring tools. Let's say CloudTrade. I believe maybe you get to see about this one in the coming sessions, but use different monitoring tools to monitor your malicious activity on your EC2 instances. As we said, we want to use this one for critical stuff. If your DB server gets hacked, for example, imagine some of the things that you can lose or some of the things that can be some of the issues that you can face due to that hack or anything. So monitor any unauthorization on your EC2 instance. Also, use firewall to protect your instances from unauthorized access. So this one takes into consideration security groups and some other networking aspect of your EC2 instance. So try to protect it as much as you can. Lastly, encrypt your data at rest and in transit, right? So let's say in case of EBS, please, when you're sending your data out or into it, okay, especially when you're sending your data out or receive or getting your data or having your data at rest, please try to encrypt it. So if anyone was to, as we said, you can, let's say if anyone gets to gets access on your DB server, as said, if you have your data encrypted, he basically can't do anything. Yeah, it's true that he was successful at reaching your DB server, but with your data encrypted at rest and in transit, you have that upper hand on your data. So in this regard, you can use different services that AWS provides. We have AWS KMS and different other services that are there in AWS. And yeah, I believe that's it for today for our EC2 session. I think next week you will also get to learn more on this topic. It's a very huge topic of AWS because it covers a lot. EC2 instances nearly the main component of AWS. So yeah, that's it for me. Thank you for attending.
All right. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for the for the session and going through the basics for EC2. And yes, the last page is for references. And as he mentioned, we'll be sharing the slides with you guys on the group. And whoever hasn't joined, maybe it's your first time to be here. Maybe you have been invited by someone in the group and you'd like to join the group. I think maybe Cynthia could help us with sharing the group link, invite link in the comment box or chat box, so that someone who hasn't already joined the group can join as well. And just before, thank you, Cynthia, the link is there. So whoever wants to join, please use that link to join our group. And just before we get into the practice test, maybe if there are a couple of questions that you guys would like to pass on to Daniel before we just head into the, to see if we really grasp the concept of EC2, please raise your hand, or we shall acknowledge your silence as I go to the practice test. Thank you. Does anyone have?
So I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So probably the first thing I want to say is to thank Daniel, because what I wanted mostly on this session was the practical session, and I guess in a few minutes he shared us that practice on how to create and launch the EC2 instance. What I would like to ask him, is there any, is it on EC2 instances? So the practice, I would like to suggest if we can get more practice, maybe not in this session, if there is another way where we can learn from him. Maybe he can teach us more on practical, and because most of the time we tend to have those theories and to understand it well, but me, I like practice than theory. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Maybe you can be more specific on what you really need, because EC2 is a very wide service, so you can use it for different kind of applications. As I said, you can run a lot of servers there. You can run an application server, you can run a DB server, you can use it for different purposes. You can even use it as a Docker container, so as a Docker container. You can use it as a Kubernetes cluster, anything. So maybe you can tell me into like what do you really need to have more clarity on. But yeah, that's what I can say on this instance. Yes, sir.
What I was going to say, I think you just specified. I was going to ask if maybe if I am having like an e-commerce website or an application, how could if I want to maybe to move it to the cloud? So will I need only the EC2 to scale, to do all those kind of things, or I may need other things that we are going to learn in the future, or this is need only to make it work and run on AWS? Thank you.
Yeah, so to begin with, you basically have all the basics that you can rely into to have your application hosted on an EC2 server. Maybe some other things that you can look into, or that we are going to cover as we proceed, is just to make things better. Let's say, how do you encrypt your data? With Cynthia, we have seen how do we use IAM roles to define who have access on your data, with other key topics as well. But for now, you have all the basics you need to just take your application and host it on an EC2 server. So there are different options on how you can host it. You can host it as a Docker container, right? You can host it as a Kubernetes cluster, as I was saying. You can just host it even on bare metal. So there are different ways to do so.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. I think other things I'm going to connect with you on LinkedIn so that we can know each other further. Thank you.
Okay, Serge. Yeah, that will be wonderful. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Serge. Thank you for the question. And yes, I think the sessions here cannot cover everything in the course. And for the sake of time, we cannot do like extended practice hands-on tests, or maybe cover some of the things that we can, that the AWS services can provide. But yes, there are tons of resources on the internet. If you maybe even go on YouTube and search EC2 instances, or how to launch them, how to deploy some of the things on EC2, you might find them. And yes, Cynthia, did you raise a hand just to support, or is a question?
Yeah, I wanted to add on what Daniel said. So there are things that we didn't do hands-on because it would be covered in the upcoming sessions. So like maybe auto-scaling and load balancing. There's a specific session for that one, and there will be hands-on on how you can do create an auto-scaling, use the launch template that Daniel talked about. And the same thing for EBS or other storages, that also will be covered in the next session on cloud storages. So you get more practice on those ones as we go on. So that's what I wanted.
Yes, thank you, Cynthia. So unlike other topics that we've covered before, this EC2 type of module has been separated or divided into two sections. So there is this session or section that we just Daniel just covered, but next week it will be another session still related to EC2 instances, but more on the storages that even Daniel tackled on a bit, but it will be more of an extensive part of it. So yes, Hillary, you had raised a hand, please.
Yes. So I want to appreciate you all for this lecture. Thank you for this section. I appreciate. I joined a bit late, and I was wondering if I can get this slide. Is it possible?
Yes, Hillary. So we're gonna share it in the group that we have, a WhatsApp group. Are you on the group, by the way?
Yes, I just joined using this link. Just shared now.
All right. So we're gonna share it. Danielle, the author of the slides, will share the link on the group so that you can access them afterwards. As I mentioned, there are a couple of links, references that are on the last slide of the presentation, of which you can access more resources and explanations and documentations about the topic covered today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hillary. Any other question as we gear up for the
Yeah, I think there is a question that is it Hillary? I'm not sure. The one, so it's Kevin. Yeah, so he asked if there are any tips or best practices when setting up an auto-scaling group or load balancing, especially with cost in mind. Okay, so thanks for the question, Kevin. So one thing that I can say in regards to auto-scaling and having the costs having the cost in mind is that so as you have seen with auto-scaling, you basically not charged. So there isn't any charge for using the service. So you are allowed to specify as many servers as you want. But one thing that I would emphasize on is in regards to the minimum number of servers that you need and the minimum size of servers that you have and the desired capacity. So those are the two main components which will really affect your price, especially on the desired capacity one. So when you're going to launch when you're going to define your auto scaling group, so better take into consideration the desired capacity that you have. Because with the maximum size, you can even go with any number that you have, but the desired capacity, you can basically be charged for that, because the desired capacity is that thing that AWS will look into in your auto scaling policy and be like, hey, at this time, this is the amount of capacity that I need. So it's going to balance according to the desired capacity, especially. So it's not going to go that lower or that upper, but it's going to stick to the desired capacity more often than the other two components of an auto scaling group. So with the maximum size, that one is not that crucial, but the desired capacity really need to be intentional on predicting how much you may need. So that's what I can say in terms of auto scaling. So the other one was about load balancing. So for load balancing, I would say, first of all, when defining your load balancing behaviors, maybe you can just take into consideration not a small number per se. Let's say if it's a CPU utilization, please don't call for a very low metric, because that one can actually affect you in the long run. Let's say you have defined let's say the CPU utilization to be 60 to scale, to load balance at, that was in regards to auto scaling. So in terms of load balancing, as I was saying, so load balancing there's nothing much to say past. It's just a service that is there to actually lower your costs per se, because it can take into consideration the different instances that you have and try to zero out traffic on each one of them. So one thing that I can say on load balancing is that you can just try to also not have a small limitation, maybe define a metric which makes sense. Let's say load balance the traffic on, if this traffic, don't let any instance have more than this amount of traffic, but try to maximize your cost as much as you can. That's what I can say in that regard per se. Yeah. So, hope I answered your question a bit.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Daniel. All right, so if there is no other question, we can right now head to the practice test. I'm going to send the link here on the chat box. It's sent right now. And like other practice tests that we've had before, this one is going to happen on Kahoot, and we'll be having a live interaction. As you answer questions, we go through the practice test in every question together, and the questions will be timed. So make sure that you answer the questions and pretty much read the question thoroughly, so you can really know what is the question about and which things you need to be using, or which things you need to be some of the key aspects of the questions, because sometimes the question could be distractive per se, and it might contain information that you won't need just for the purpose to to determine if you really have understood like the basics or how to analyze the important keywords in the question and to know the best answer to give. So yes, Cynthia, can you start it? So as he starts, okay, so I guess I had already sent a link, but Cynthia is going to generate a new one. So let me just delete the one that I had sent already, and Cynthia is going to give us the new one as Kahoot generated for her, yes. Click on classic mode.
Classic mode. Where is it?
Yes,
Okay.
that's one. Okay, Kahoot is generating a code. So the code is the one that is used for a particular Kahoot. So just click on the game pin, click on it. The game pin, there's 7089769. Click on it, Cynthia, if you can.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
just there. Yes, and send us the link on Zoom.
Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to share my screen and I don't know what Zoom said. Say that my browser is unknown, so I don't know. Probably I need to to do a double check. So yes, the link has been sent. Please do join.
I think you can see your screen.
Sorry.
I think I can see your screen, or is this not?
Oh yes. No, this is Cynthia's. It's not mine.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
Kevin has joined. Please keep clicking on the link and join. And after I see everyone has joined, then we'll start the Kahoot with all of you. So Kevin, kudos to you. All right, are you guys having any hindrance joining? All right, Hillary.
Yeah.
Hillary. Please, if you meet any hindrance joining the link or joining us on Kahoot, let us know. We're waiting for you guys. Ashiel, thank you, Ashiel. Mr. Achilles, the tail of Achilles. Thank you, Serge. Thank you, Serge. So we have Achilles in the house and we have Caesar in the house. Greek names. Greek names are roaming the place. Okay. All right. One more person to go, I guess. One more person to go. So I think it's Meshach, Serge, you're there. So Caesar, I don't know if, oh yes, Caesar is actually still, yes, Achille, Serge, Hillary, and Kevin. So we are waiting for Meshach and yeah, Meshach. Meshach, can you join us, please? All right, Meshach, thank you. I guess now Cynthia can start the Kahoot. Okay. So practice test, this is about EC2, but there'll be also more questions covering topics that we've gone through before. So the first question, which EC2 purchasing option can provide the biggest discount, but is not suitable for critical jobs or databases? Is it a scheduled instance? Is it a convertible instance? Is it a dedicated host? Is it a spot instance? Questions are timed, guys, so 3, 2, 1. We only received 2 answers out of 5 people. So guys, remember that we have time here. So as we go to the next question, remember that the question has only 20 seconds. So read the question very faster and go through the multiple choice and know which answer to go to. Okay, next. All right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
On that first one, I was trying to see the options. I could only see blocks.
You could only see blocks. Yes, those blocks were the answers.
Okay, you were reading them out. Okay.
Yeah, I was also reading them out for you guys.
Yeah, I think sometimes it takes long to actually see the answers. So maybe you can try to select the answer depending on the block that you see. So if it's a square, look for the answer that goes with the square or I don't know if it makes sense. So you can look at the screen at the same time just to.
Because what I'm reading is on the screen, on your guy's screen, on your individual screens. So it's the same. But if it happens for the second time, please let us know and we can check what's wrong. Yes, Cynthia? Okay. The second question, which network security tool can you use to control traffic in and out of EC2 instances? Is it a network control list? Is it IAM? Is it security groups or none of above? All right. All right. For answers now. So the right answer is security groups and you've got it right. Great. Let's keep continuing. So yes. So guys, the scoreboard here generates scores, mostly depending on someone who's, you get more scores if you answer faster and you answer the right questions. So if you answer faster and get the right questions, then you get more answers. No, you get more points, sorry. Yes. Next question, please. Under the shared responsibility model, who is responsible for operating system patches and update on EC2 instances? Is it the customer? Is it AWS or both the customer and AWS? Patches and updates on system on the EC2 instances. Okay. All right. Yes, the customer is the one who's responsible for patches and updates. As you've seen, Daniel has updated the EC2 instance after he launched it. So the customer is responsible for the patches and updates on EC2. Yes. Next. And please avoid writing on the Kahoot board. Just use the buttons that are given. So please, anyone who is actually on the Kahoot game, avoid writing on the board. Just click on the buttons. Okay, thank you. Next. How long can you reserve an EC2? Can you reserve an EC2 reserved instance? Is it 1 or 3 years, 6 months or 1 year, 2 or 4 years, or anytime between 1 and 3 years? Okay, time is ticking. Time is ticking. Okay, let's see the right answer. And the right answer is 1 or 3 years. As Daniel mentioned, it's either one, you have to commit to reserve, to have this kind of reserved instances. It's either 1 year or a 3-year commitment. It's not any time between 1 and 3. It's 1 or 3 years. So there's no 2, there is no 6 months, it's 1 or 3 years. Next. Okay, Kevin is on fire. And the fifth question, one would like to deploy a high performance computing HPC application on EC2. Which EC2 instance type should he choose? So is it a HPC optimized? Is it a storage optimized? Is it a compute optimized, or is it a memory optimized? Okay. Only one person replied HPC optimized. Yes, I think among the instance types that Daniel mentioned, storage optimized, compute, and memory optimized were mentioned, as well as the HPC optimized. And this question mostly asked and specifically mentioned the high performance computing HPC. So there is the compute optimized could have done it, but there is a particular HPC optimized instance that has been enabled and done for such tasks. So HPC is the best answer. Next. The scoreboard is scoreboarding. Which of the following is not an EC2 instance purchasing option? What instances? Reserved, connect, on-demand instances. Select your answers. Time is ticking. Okay. All right. Yes. So only one choose reserved instances. Both spot and reserved and on-demand instances are type of EC2 instance purchasing option, but there is no connect instances that is among those. So connect instances does not even exist. Okay, next. Okay, Kevin is still on the lead. Kevin is on fire. Which EC2 purchasing option should you choose for an application you plan on running a server continuously for a year? Is it a reserved instance? Is it a spot instance? Is it on-demand or convertible instances? All right. Time for, okay. Reserved instances. As we kept mentioning, reserved instances when it comes to committing for a certain period of a time, especially for 1 or 3 years, reserved instances are the go-to instances to choose. So if a question comes with a particular time or duration of time, ranging for 1 year or 3 years and above, then the reserved instances could be the right answer for you. So whoever answered on-demand instances, the person knows when he wants to use the particular instance, and he would like to have like a best purchasing option that could benefit him for the particular period. So reserved instances is a good match. Next. Okay. Some people are moving up, so beware of Meshach. Autocar is planning to move its customers' website from its traditional data centers to EC2. What is the benefit of this? Physically isolating the data centers from the internet, it will allow Autocar not to take care of operating system and patching. It will allow Autocar to avoid expensive. It will allow Autocar to focus on goals. So what is the right answer? Please put in the answer. Okay. Wow, time is going faster. This is what actually happens on the, well, the questions here are not timed the way that you shall see it in the exam. So the exam is timed like collectively with all questions, not like on a particular question, but this gives you like the feel of how the exam will be, because you need to think faster for you to go through all the questions, because you get like 120 questions in the exam, so you need to think faster. Maybe you can go back and go through them again, but you need at least to make sure that every question has been accounted for. So yes, the answer here is the last one. Autocar will focus on goals instead of managing infrastructure. One person here mentioned or answered, it will allow Autocar not to take care of operating system and patching. Yes, that is among the right answers, but the last one is the best answer because it also encompasses that answer as well, because when you are managing your infrastructure, you also are taking care of the operating system and patching. You're making sure that the infrastructure is on an update, is running on a good pace in terms of updates and patches. So the last option is the best answer, even though the blue one was also the right answer. So here, sometimes most of the multiple answers that they have been given to you contains the right answer, but you have to make sure that you choose the best answer of them all. Yes, next question, please.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to add on that. I think the blue wouldn't be correct unless this knot is not.
Oh, the knot, it will allow Autocar not. Oh, sorry. Then I hadn't really realized that the knot point. So yes. So
I
the
answered
blue one
that,
is,
and I think I didn't read that last option before So obviously
yes.
that last option is correct.
Is the right
Yeah,
answer.
correct one.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the next question, please.
Okay.
All right. The ninth, in which scenario should Amazon EC2 spot instances be used? Okay, please have a read at it. Choose your answers. The time is ticking. Time. Okay. All right. In which scenario should Amazon EC2 spot instance be used? A company has infrequent, interruptible jobs on demand instances. So this company should actually opt using spot instances because it has infrequent interruptible, because spot instances might not be available, as Daniel mentioned, might not be available all the time. So it might be snatched out of your availability to be given to another person. But yes, just before it just got base match from your availability, AWS gives you like a 2-minute notification just before you do that. But still, the company has interruptible jobs, so it's okay to use spot instances for a more cost-effective plan. So yes, that's the right answer. Next question. No, next question, please. The next question, a company is moving application running non-interruptible workloads for 3 years, which is cost-effective solution. Spot, dedicated, on-demand, or reserved instances. Right. Now, the question was, a company is moving its application running non-interruptible workloads for 3 years. So we have 2 keywords here. We have a timeline for 3 years, and we have non-interruptible workloads. Here we cannot use spot instances anymore because the workloads are non-interruptible. We don't want to lose our instance when our workloads or processes are running. So the spot instances is out of the line. We cannot use a dedicated instance for 3 years. That's a huge amount to spare. EC2 on-demand instances is not also a cost-effective solution compared to reserved instances when we know exactly when we'll be using that instance for. So 3 years is best, and reserved instances is best option here. Yes, next. Okay. Which of the following is the correct way to create an IAM role that can be assumed by an EC2 instance? Time is ticking. Put your answers. Okay. Great. So, which of the following is the correct way to create an IAM role that can be assumed by an EC2 instance? Create an IAM role and attach a policy that allows it to do desired actions is the right answer. Even though most of the people didn't opt for it. So some of them say create an IAM role and send the role to the EC2 instance. And some other people said all of the above. So create an IAM role, attach a policy that allows it to do desired actions. So Cynthia has covered in the previous section. Next question. Sun Solar wants to use an AWS feature to help reduce expenses by spinning up EC2 based on demand. Which feature is that? Availability zones, cost optimization, elastic load balancer, auto scaling. Select your answers. Time is ticking. Okay. And the right answer here is auto scaling. Some say elastic load balancer, some say Amazon cost optimization. The question asks, which AWS feature is can be used to reduce expenses by spinning up EC2 based on demand? So as we've learned, auto scaling can help us scale up or scale larger our EC2 instances and can help us reduce expenses because it only scales up according to the workloads that are available. It cannot scale up more or further than what is there. So as Daniel mentioned, as the workload spikes up, so it scales accordingly. It does not avail any other resources than the ones that are needed. So it becomes cost effective on that point. Next question. All right, Kevin is still on the top of the game. Select the correct statements in regards to IAM. So read the answers, please. And remember to put your answers before the time ends. Time is ticking, time is ticking. Time. All right. All of the above. So the root account does have administrator access, yes. Users can create access key ID and secret access key to access the AWS command line interface, yes. Users can manage users, groups, roles, and their level of access. Next question. Which of the following is not a problem with the traditional IT approach? Is not a problem. Time. Okay, scaling is unlimited. So the traditional IT approach does not allow us to scale in an unlimited time or scale as we go or as we use or have multiple or spikes on resources that are needed according to their availability. So yeah, that's the answer. Yes, please. Which of the following services has a global scope? Is it EC2? Is it IAM? Is it recognition or Lambda? IAM is a global service, unlike EC2, Lambda, or recognition. Next question. What are AWS point of presence edge locations? Time. Yes, point of edge location helps us deliver content to users with low latency. Yes, next answer. Next question, please. Sorry. One of the AWS services actually that uses edge location is CloudFront. Which are the three pricing fundamentals of the AWS cloud? Read the answers, please, so that I don't consume more time. The time is ticking. Choose your answer. All right. So here, the tricky part was the last section of the answer. So mostly the pricing fundamentals or what AWS pretty much the based on when determining the pricing is the compute power, the storage, and the data transfer out of the AWS cloud, not in the, so it doesn't price, sometimes it doesn't price on the inbound transfers and transactions, rather the data transfer transaction out of the AWS cloud. So the compute power, the storage space, and the data transfer out of the AWS cloud is mostly the three rubrics that AWS based on when determining the pricing fundamentals. Next. You only want to manage applications and data. Which type of cloud computing model should you use? Platform as a service. It's only applications and data. So you only need the platform to manage applications and data. You don't need the infrastructure to manage the servers and updates and everything. You only need a platform. You don't need the software as well, and you don't need on-premises infrastructure of the way. So next. You want to give admin access to a new user. You can log into the AWS, but they can't do anything. What should you give them? Time is ticking. All right, so the right answer is add them into existing administrators group where other admin users belong, because you want to give him admin access, of course, so he has to be part of the big people or the big gang of the AWS super users. Next, I guess that was the last question. So now, yeah, the podium is there. The third person, Achilles. Yay, the flower is already given to you. Meshach, the second person, and now on the highlight, the spotlight, Kevin on the first podium. And we have some runner-ups, Hillary and Serge. And don't worry, as you keep practicing the practice tests that we give you and reading more on the courses and modules, and especially on some of the resources that we share on the group, you will get more grasp. You shall get a grasp of understanding of some of the models and concepts that we go through, because this is quite a self-paced learning. So we give you like a whole week for you to go through the modules and come on Saturday to cover the topics as well with you, so that we can have a platform for you to ask questions. But please do use and take advantage on the resources that are available online as well. Maybe we cannot give all the resources, but YouTube has one of the largest I would say container resources there, and some of the YouTube videos that we also use to prepare ourselves for the exam, we pull them from there. And also some of the websites provide sample test questions. You can keep doing them as you progress forward. So this is the end of our session, but please, if you have any questions before we just end our session, please make sure you give it to us. And one other tip is that if you're having a session like this, you can have a notebook. Just bring your notebook and write some, some keywords, if I would say, or some notes, and after go through the presentation itself and refresh again on what you've learned and from what you've seen in the practice test as well, because how the exam comes, most of the questions will be, they'll be giving you like a scenario, as they told you, like one of the questions in the practice test were like, a company is going to do, or a company needs this, a company has this kind of requirements. What you, as maybe as an AWS cloud certified personnel, could advise this company. So they'll give you a kind of like scenario, and you choose among the answers that they gave you. Some of the answers might be right for the question, but some of the answers are best for the question. So if you see that one answer has like the right answers in one thing, like in one package or in one answer, so make sure you choose that answer instead of choosing multiple right answers. So the right answers in the choices and the best answers. So make sure that you choose the best suitable answer for the questions. And as you keep doing practice tests, you'll get to have like, you'll get to master or to harness your mind to know actually which best answer to choose. And as you go also through the resources that we give you, you'll get to understand the core concepts. So that's my last moment. So if you have any questions just before we say goodbyes and maybe take a picture, please do ask us questions, and we'll wrap up the session. So that's for one, that's for two. I don't have a gavel here to bank, but consider that banked. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining our session, and thank you for keeping up with the time. So see you in the next session. Thank you, Daniel, for the presentation and helping us go through this module. Seeing you next Saturday. All right, Cynthia, are you going to take a picture, or you just took it before?
I don't know if Daniel can help us with that.
Okay.
But also if people are willing to turn on their camera as well.
Right.
But I can also help if maybe Daniel is not.
Give us a few seconds.
Okay. I see some people. Actually, if you're okay, you can turn on your camera. Okay. And then, okay, I don't know why my screen is only showing you my name. I don't know how I can add everything in this picture. Or maybe Daniel can help us with that, since he's been doing that for. Hi, Daniel. Okay, we can't hear you.
Well, Daniel, you're muted.
Yeah, I was muted actually. I couldn't. So let me just do something. I think it would be better if we also included the slides just for this. Let me just see if I still have it open somewhere.
Okay.
Hello, it's nice to see some of you.
Yeah, I think it's my first time to see Hillary, Serge, Caesar. Oh, Caesar. So I thought Achille and Caesar were two different people. So that's why I was saying that Greek names are roaming the place. So it's only one person, but nice to meet you, Caesar. Meshach, hello as well.
Okay.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Hillary.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you too, Hillary. Okay, so let me take, so we go, is there anything we need to say, any keyword? What is the, all cheese will do?
or AWS or EC2 or load balancing or something. It doesn't always have to be cheese. I mean, I do not eat cheese, unfortunately. So, okay.
Okay, so
All
we
right.
go. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, AWS.
Cost
AWS.
optimization.
Okay, I think that will
Yeah.
do.
All
Okay, guys,
right.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That was a reminder that you need to terminate your EC2 instances if you're not using them. Please do terminate them, or else your card will be used as if it is given to what? To a baby boss. Thank you. Bye. See you
Thank
next
you. Thank
Saturday.
you, everyone. Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah, Daniel, please. We hope that you have terminated your EC2 instance.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I actually recommend for anyone, especially if you're not going to use the EC2 for some business-oriented things. So please make sure you turn it off, because I've seen some people going way even to. I have a friend of mine who actually had his bill go way up, like he had a bill of more than 1,000, like 1,000, but he was dealing with some other stuff on the plan in less than 1 week, if I remember well. But he was dealing, yeah. So he was learning a whole cluster, he was learning a whole application cluster on that specific server. So I believe he launched an EC2 server with more than 2 TB of memory. Oh, no, storage actually. So, but I know you guys are not going to do that one, but even that being said, please make sure to turn off your
A second piece, if you launch an instance, an EC2 instance, but you don't have anything in it, like will you be billed?
Definitely, Hilary, definitely.
Yeah, as long as it's turned on, as long as it's running.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as Kevin said, you're billed per minute or second. Yeah. So
Yes,
okay.
as long as it's running or hibernated or stopped, it still is billing. So it still is considered as an active instance. So yeah, make sure you just close it, because that could be someone's 3-month salary or dowry, as Kevin mentioned. So yes, thank you so much for being with us. See you next time. AWS will be even in public. All right, Kevin, public IP addresses. Imagine, I mean, the pressure is going to be worse, but it seems like Kevin is speaking from experience. So maybe one time we just give you a quick 3 minutes to tell us about your experience at AWS. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let's just close here. Let's stop the recording, and